Two American storytellers, two legends chasing truth through time with lyrics and the powerful sound of music. But only one can take the crown in the vault. This is Blue Moon versus Deliver Me From Nowhere.
Welcome to a very special episode of The Vault, inside the Crypt of Nights. I am the Vault Keeper, your host for this evening.
The contenders.
First up, Blue Moon, directed by the ever-improving Richard Linklater, who gave us classics like Dazed and Confused and A Scanner Darkly. He teams up in his 9th collaboration with Ethan Hawke, the Newton Boys, and the Before trilogy, just to name a few. Hawke stars as a fading Lawrence Hart, of the famed Rodgers and Hart musical theater duo. On the night of the Oklahoma premiere, the first play where Richard Rodgers used a different lyricist, Oscar Hammerstein II. This film is filmed on one single location, and reminded us why Linklater is one of America's most human and creative storytellers. Then there's Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, directed by Scott Cooper, who gave us great films like Black Mass, The Pale Blue Eye, and Hostiles, starring Jeremy Allen White as the boss during the making of the cult classic album Nebraska, a story about art, loneliness, and obsession that, somehow, feels lonelier than it should. It's got atmosphere, sure, but it's like listening to a cover band that doesn't quite capture the fire.
Story and plot.
Both films explore musicians in a deeply emotional moment in their lives, but alas, very different moments.
Alright, so here's the deal. Blue Moon is basically one long night with this guy Lawrence Hart, a legendary lyricist who's kinda like if Oscar Wilde and your drunk uncle from Boston had a baby. It's 1943, opening night of Oklahoma, the musical his old writing partner Rodgers just made without him. And it's a massive hit. So what does Hart do? He bails on the party, ducks into Sardi's, and starts running his mouth to anyone who'll listen. The bartender, the piano guy, some random kid delivering flowers, about how he's fine, totally fine, not bitter at all. The guy's brilliant, tortured, and trying real hard not to drink, which, by the way, is like telling a New Yorker not to complain about rent. The rest of the movie's this slow burn of charm, heartbreak, and midlife crisis. Hart's trying to win over this young art student, still hung up on his old partner, and wrestling with the fact that the world might have moved on without him. It's this bittersweet mix of old-school Broadway glamour and one-man's self-destruction. But it never turns preachy. Just raw, human, and kind of funny, in that painful way where you laugh, because otherwise, you'd cry. Blue Moon isn't about success or failure. It's about what's left when the spotlight moves on. And you're still sitting there with your drink, pretending you don't care. Blue Moon feels like Richard Linklater took the spirit of Before Sunset and dropped it straight into the smoke and melancholy of 1940s Broadway. The film is deceptively simple, mostly conversation, music, and one long night in a restaurant. But Linklater turns that simplicity into something cinematic and alive. Every shot feels like it's breathing with the rhythm of the dialogue, the tinkling of the piano, the nervous tapping of a glass. It's the kind of movie that reminds you how much can happen between two people just talking. Ethan Hawke, as Lawrence Hart, is flat-out brilliant. He doesn't perform so much as exist in that space. Half genius, half tragic clown, holding court with all the swagger and fragility of a man who knows the world has moved on without him. Linklater's direction, paired with Robert Kaplow's elegant script, transforms the film into a character study that's equal parts comedy, heartbreak, and creative autopsy. But what really makes Blue Moon stand out is how effortlessly Linklater weaves all of this into a meditation on artistic relevance, on what happens when your muse leaves the room, and you're left talking to the ghosts of your own success. The film's long, unbroken takes let Hawke, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott breathe life into dialogue that feels like jazz, improvised, painful, and funny all at once. The lighting, the period detail, even the slightly surreal forced perspective shots, playing off Hart's small stature, give the film a stage-like intimacy. You feel like you're eavesdropping on history. In the end, Blue Moon isn't just a biopic. It's Linklater at his most humane, crafting a love letter to writers, dreamers, and anyone who's ever been left behind by their own brilliance. All right, so Springsteen. Deliver Me From Nowhere is basically what happens when you take one of the biggest rock stars on the planet and strip away the lights, the glory, and the E Street Band, and just leave the guy alone with his thoughts, a guitar, and some serious demons. The story kicks off in 1981, right after Bruce has wrapped up a massive tour, and instead of basking in the fame, his manager John Landau tucks him away in a quiet New Jersey house so he can find himself. Except, Bruce doesn't find peace. He finds ghosts. He's wrestling with fame, his own perfectionism, and a brutal relationship with his father that still bleeds into everything he writes. Between his late-night recording sessions and a hesitant romance with a local woman, he starts writing songs that sound nothing like the stadium anthems people expect. Dark, raw, and haunted. What follows is less a rock biopic and more like watching a guy exercise his soul through a 4-track recorder. We see Bruce piece together what becomes Nebraska, his most stripped-down personal album, the one that sounds like it was recorded in a dream you're not sure you want to wake up from. He clashes with record execs, ghosts his band, and nearly loses himself completely in the process. But under all the depression, loneliness, and creative obsession, there's this quiet, burning need for connection. With his parents, his art, and himself. It's not about fame. It's about survival. Deliver Me From Nowhere isn't born to run, Bruce. It's the guy staring in the mirror at 3 a.m., trying to remember why he started running in the first place. Springsteen. Deliver Me From Nowhere wants to bottle lightning, the lonely, haunted energy that gave birth to Nebraska, but ends up staring at the thunderclouds instead. Scott Cooper goes for intimacy, zeroing in on the moment the boss stripped everything down to a cassette tape and his own broken voice. On paper, it's a killer setup. A man at the height of his fame, rejecting glory to wrestle with his demons. But on screen, Cooper's approach often feels like a museum exhibit, reverent, well-lit, and a little lifeless. The film leans hard on tired biopic tropes, long gazes into notebooks, half-finished lyrics, and slow pans of Bruce brooding under flickering lamplight. Yet even when the storytelling goes flat, Jeremy Allen White jolts the film with raw magnetism, channeling Springsteen's restless drive and barely contained electricity. Every time he steps behind a mic or picks up a guitar, the movie finally breathes. Still, what makes Deliver Me From Nowhere worth watching, even when it's playing things too safe, is how it treats Springsteen's art as both a wound and a cure. Odessa Young brings surprising warmth and humanity to Faye, the fictional love interest who grounds Bruce's spiral without romanticizing it, while Jeremy Strong gives producer John Landau his usual coiled precision, playing the steadying hand to Bruce's chaos. Cooper may not reinvent the music biopic, but he gets one thing dead right: the sound. The Nebraska sessions hum with eerie authenticity, that scratchy lo-fi ache that feels like it's bleeding straight out of Bruce's psyche. The result is a film that's sometimes inert, but often soulful. A flawed, somber portrait of an artist on the edge, wrestling not with fame, but with the fear that the spotlight might burn away what's left of himself. Both films talk about great men, great talented musicians and lyricists, but Blue Moon tells it with warmth and humanity, while Deliver Me From Nowhere gets lost in its own shadows.
Blue Moon, 9, Springsteen, 6.
Characters and performances.
Ethan Hawke gives one of the best performances of his career. Soulful, vulnerable, real. Jeremy Allen White? Great actor, but trapped in a script that worships the myth instead of revealing the man. The supporting cast is great on both movies: Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale, and Andrew Scott in Blue Moon, and Jeremy Strong, Paul Walter Hauser, Stephen Graham, and Odessa Young in Springsteen. It is hard to pick a winner on this category, but since we have to, Ethan Hawke deserves the win.
Blue Moon, 10, Springsteen, 9.
Cinematography and visuals.
Blue Moon was shot by Shane F. Kelly, who paints emotion with light, soft blues, warm golds, like a visual blues song. And production designer Susie Cullen adds to the embellishment of this work. On the other hand, cinematographer Masanobu Takayanagi and production designer Stefania Cella in Deliver Me From Nowhere do Susie Cullen a great job of creating a sense of realism. The film is beautiful. Each still could be an album cover.
Blue Moon, 9, Springsteen, 8.
Impact and legacy.
It's early, but Blue Moon already feels timeless. The kind of film that'll only grow with age. This is more of a cinephiles type of film. The Springsteen movie? It'll probably play very well with die-hard fans and as a music movie. But as a whole film, that script just lets it down.
Blue Moon, 9, Springsteen, 6.
Fun factor/rewatch value.
Blue Moon makes you feel alive, you'll laugh, and you will most definitely cry. Deliver Me From Nowhere, if you're a fan of the album, you will definitely enjoy it. If you're a fan of the more hard rock music from Springsteen, it will make you want to take a nap.
Blue Moon 9, Springsteen 5.
Look, both movies have ambition, heart, and a love for music. But only one sings. Linklater doesn't just tell a story, he listens to it. Every scene in Blue Moon feels lived in, organic, like the echo of a memory. Meanwhile, Deliver Me From Nowhere spends 2 hours staring into the abyss and, somehow still manages to miss what makes Springsteen one of the greatest and most important icons in American music. It actually manages to make him seem a little self-absorbed and unimportant. So yeah, it's no contest. Hawke deserves that Oscar nomination, and Linklater might have just made his best film since Dazed and Confused.
Final score.
Blue Moon 46 out of 50. Deliver Me From Nowhere 36 out of 50.
With a near knockout score of 46-36, the crown goes to Blue Moon, a heartfelt musical meditation that proves Richard Linklater is still one of cinema's truest storytellers. Do you agree with the verdict? Was I too hard on Deliver Me From Nowhere? Or did you fall asleep halfway through too? Let me hear about it in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in, and please keep watching the Crypt of Nights.